I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network. Today on the James Altucher Show.
You know, my son was born when I was in Afghanistan in 2001. And I said, I want to be around to see my kids grow up. And so I got out. I got out of the military early. People thought I was crazy. I was ranked number 1 in my command, got promoted on the spot, went to the sniper program, and I had this amazing career. I could have done anything, went anywhere, and I decided to get out. I was fried. I was burnt out. I have this philosophy I've always had since I had my first job when I was 13. If I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I'm going to find something else to do.
Did you really have that philosophy? Because I feel like, to be honest, I only had that philosophy after I turned 40 years old. I think before then, I was on this eager hunger for money, thinking that once I have X, then I could have that philosophy. FreshBooks is a cloud accounting software that helps you tackle your paperwork faster so you can spend more time building momentum in your business. 192 hours worth of time. 192 hours could save you 2 working days per month. To get started with a 30-day free trial, go to freshbooks.com/James and put the James Altucher Show in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Today's show is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Zendesk. Think about this. What do Uber, Slack, and Groupon have in common? And I'll tell you, they all use Zendesk to build better customer relationships. With products like a smart knowledge base, live chat, phone support, and ticketing all connected in one place, Zendesk streamlines customer conversations and engagement. Zendesk products are easy to use and implement and built for the long haul. Schedule a demo today and see for yourself. Visit zendesk.com/James. That's zendesk.com/James.
It's almost like these things came out of nowhere. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. A few years ago, they were pennies, and now Bitcoin is over $4,000 a coin. I call these currencies choose yourself currencies because they don't depend on any institution, any government, any bank to function. And they're just simply exploding in price right now. It's unbelievable. Some have jumped as high as 3,000%, 21,000%, and even a rare 81,000%. Again, it reminds me of things like the dot-com boom in the 90s. Stocks were going up 20, 30% a day. Everyone said it was irrational exuberance, but they kept going for another 5 years, and some of them are still going. So if you're missing out on this boom, don't worry. You're not alone. We're just in inning, I don't know if we're in inning 0 anymore, but we're in inning 1. Most people are not investing in cryptos simply because they don't even know how to get started. So I decided I want to do something about that. I want to inform everyone listening how to get started. I'm offering a free 6-video series masterclass on cryptocurrencies, where I'll walk you step by step through the entire process. If you're interested in claiming this free masterclass, please go to altucher.io. That's altucher.io/masterclass, where I'll give you all of the details. Brandon Webb, welcome.
Thanks for having me. No yelling at me this time.
Oh, did I yell at you last time?
Yeah, like boot camp style here.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. To drop and give you 20.
Well, okay. I am gonna. There's always something, because I am gonna say you have a new book. It's called Total Focus: Make Better Decisions Under Pressure. And I always hate subtitles. That's the first time I ever looked at that subtitle. It could have just been called Total Focus.
Yeah.
And I would have implied, all right, I'm gonna make better decisions under pressure.
Yeah.
But you need it. I get it. The publisher wants you to do it.
It's always a dance.
And, you also wrote the bestsellers, The Red Circle and The Killing School. You were on just a month ago, I feel, about The Killing School, which is, so just to give some background, you were in the SEALs, you had a deployment to Afghanistan, you had a deployment to Iraq. When you got back, they asked you, or you sort of came up with a curriculum, let's make a school to really teach snipers how to do it. And that sounds almost... I just want to say that sounds almost like evil. Let's teach people how to kill. But there's an important aspect of that too, which is, and you describe it in the very first chapter of this book, it's also when you're in life and death situations, protecting not only Americans, but other civilians on the ground, you have to decide when not to pull the trigger. And I feel that was an important part of your school as well. I just want to state that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, war is an incredibly ugly thing. It's unfortunate that we still have to have a military, but we do need a military. There's just bad people in the world. But the sniper stuff, when you look at deploying capabilities on the battlefield, a sniper is very efficient and can make that decision, life or death decision. Do I take the shot or not take the shot? Whereas you look at a drone strike, maybe we'll take out a primary target, but then you've got this collateral damage of, civilians, which is just never a good thing and doesn't win any hearts and minds either.
I feel there's like several layers of that, but I do want to get to, because I find this book fascinating, just as fascinating, but I'll say for my purposes, even more fascinating than The Killing School. And obviously your memoir, The Red Circle, must read. I think for people to really, I'm as far as you can get from being a Navy SEAL. Like, I wouldn't survive 13 minutes in Navy SEAL training, and I don't know. I can't. I've written that I'm against all wars, like 100% of wars, and that's had a lot of flack.
Man. I'm not for war at all. I think war is, and only once you've experienced it and seen how ugly and raw and terrible it can be. I hope we evolve eventually to where we don't have to fight wars, because it's barbaric. You see that part of human nature that comes out and it's scary. So
I hope you're right, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that toward the end of this. But I really like you've transformed yourself from Navy SEAL to an extremely successful entrepreneur. And you've had the ups and downs that many people experience through entrepreneurship. When you first get into entrepreneurship, there's all these sort of big dreams of money. But like any skill, it's kind of like you go into it not realizing all the subtleties of the skill required for entrepreneurship. And you're almost doomed to fail the first couple of times. But then part of the skill is kind of bouncing back and using creativity and network and connections to build an even better business. And you've succeeded in doing that. And this book, Total Focus, kind of describes how you took the total focus you learned in your SEAL training and applied that to business situations. And I feel like anybody, business or not, entrepreneur or not, can benefit. And I will tell you, I spend a lot of time, and I don't mean to talk so much. I want to get to the book, but I spend a lot of time each year, kind of almost masochistically immersing myself in new skills and ventures just to keep improving. And I relate so much to the 7 principles of your total focus here, because as I'm learning a brand new skill right now, I'm experiencing every single one of these.
With the comedy stuff.
Yeah, like, so I'm going, and it helps my business. So whenever I learn these new skills, like right now, many of my listeners might know I go up 3 to 4 times a week at night and do stand-up comedy around the city, because it's this incredibly difficult new skill for me. And and I'm sure you realize this with your SEAL training and with your entrepreneurship, any skill that's worth learning has 100 different micro skills that are independent of each other, and you have to learn each one to get really great at something. And that's what I'm learning. And that's why this total focus, I kept thinking to myself, man, it reminds me of A, this one entrepreneurship situation I was in, and B, what happened to me last night when I was on stage, and whatever happened. There's always a different thing that happens every single time. It's unpredictable. And so I want to go over each of the principles, but what made you decide to write a book so quickly after The Killing School, which was a great book? And usually people wait a little while before the next big book.
Yeah, so good question. The Killing School I actually had I'd finished it with a publisher at Penguin, and I turned it in my editor, and the editor, it was a junior editor, really nice guy, and he said, look, my publisher wanted it to be more about Navy SEAL focus and this and that. And as you know, I feature a bunch of snipers from other parts of the special ops community. And I was really happy with the way the book turned out. They weren't. So I bought it.
What?
Yeah.
I was really happy with the way that Killing School. And by the way, again, as a person who is anti-violence in every way, killing school.
Yeah. And so, I said, look, if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I feel really good about the piece of work. I bought it back from Penguin and resold it to St. Martin's Press. I went to Mark Resnick, who's become a really good friend of mine, who's a senior editor at St. Martin's Press. I let him read the manuscript, told him the situation, and he bought it on the spot. And so because of that disrupted the traditional publishing cycle, and I was already working on Total Focus because I wanted to transition. I love entrepreneurship. I love business. I've devoted my life, outside the military to this. I've been an entrepreneur now longer than I was a Navy SEAL. And so I wanted to write, to share my personal journey and experience of being an entrepreneur, learning all these lessons and applying some. Like, there's some lessons in the SEAL teams that don't translate well to business. Like, you can't screw over everybody in the pursuit of your mission. I see a lot of guys get out and they apply skills that don't translate well to business and create a lot of enemies in the business community, and when you should be fostering relationships. But there are skills that translate, especially in the sniper community. To your earlier point, I was one of the cadre. I don't want to take full credit, but we looked at how do we improve our sniper program, and what really resonated with me was the positive psychology and mental management aspect. And I developed a really good friendship with Lanny Basham, who wrote an amazing book called With Winning in Mind. And he was a gold medalist, marksman, but was supposed to win gold I think this was in the 70s at the Olympics were in Munich, Germany, and he had been a world champion, was supposed to win gold. He was on this bus, and the Russians started chatting to him behind the seat, getting in his head, and he said he completely lost it.
Wow.
And they were saying, I'm glad I'm not Lanny. The pressure of the whole U.S. is on his shoulders. And he started going in his head, came back from that experience, went to all these psychologists at the time in the 70s, and it was like, look, I need to get better at this self-talk. And the psychologists all wanted to just make him better with being a loser, being
What do you mean?
being second place. He went and ended up shooting the worst match of his life, still won the silver, but had devoted years and years to winning the gold because the Olympics only comes around so often. So he went to all these psychologists, sports psychologists, that were just trying to make him okay with being second best. And he said, unacceptable.
Let me ask you about that, because while I, on occasion, like therapy, I don't think therapy is bad by any means. I think most therapists are really not as skilled as potentially that it is necessary. You're really kind of outsourcing your life to them when you see them. But the one thing I see that they're good at artificially, or maybe there's an artificial goal here, is that they will really want you to make you feel good about yourself instead of better about yourself, better than yourself.
Exactly.
So because they want to do that because you keep coming back. Like, I need like that injection of feeling good because I spent the whole week feeling bad.
Yep.
And so that's a way for them to keep clients. So there's a shifting agenda. The therapist is trying to keep the client forever. It's the only doctor where you have to go forever. You never get actually quote unquote cured. And the way they do that is to make you feel good about yourself, when perhaps what he really needed was performance improvement.
Yes. And I personally, I use a performance psychologist. She's really good. And she's one of the rare ones that wants me out and not to come back. But the story I'm sharing about Lanny was he said, no, I don't, I want to be a better self. And so he had access to the Olympic team. He spent a year surveying the gold medalists, and he found these similar traits, and they were using positive psychology before it was even a thing. And so a big part of that is mental visualization, performing in your head perfectly. Even if, you translate it to speaking in public or stand up, you can kind of imagine yourself doing this routine, and then you create contingencies. What if I get a heckler? How am I going to deal with it? And you can rehearse this all in your head. And so he was one of our consultants when we were redoing the sniper program. And it just really resonated with me, and I built a friendship over the years with him. And that's what I really pushed on the curriculum and influenced, was like, look, we need to change the way we teach the sniper students to positive teaching. We need to show them how to self-talk, how to correct any negative self-talk and use positive self-talk. And so those kind of skills and habits that are what I talk about in Total Focus that do apply, I think, big time in business, because we all walk around with self-doubt and stuff creeps in our head. And so developing a habit to positively counter that, I think, is incredibly important. But, to long story, longer answer to your question, I ended up having 2 books come out because I bought that book back and published it. And then Portfolio, which published Total Focus, Bria is an amazing editor over there. She was worried. She said, hey, this is kind of like a little close to this other book. I said, you know what? Don't worry. I think it's a different category, and I have a really awesome fan base.
I think one's a category of, like, I wouldn't quite call it military history, just like I wouldn't call the Red Circle military history, but it will go a little closer towards that. And this falls under, kind of self-improvement and positive psychology, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
Yeah. And so I'm, and it's my journey and along the entrepreneurship path, and being unfocused in the beginning, chasing my tail and all these opportunities and losing everything. Like you and I both have a significant loss stories, but, sharing my journey and how I got focused, and, how, I looked at the principles that I was using myself and put in this book. This isn't a gimmick or some invented things. I'm like, these are actual principles that I use every day in my life.
Right. And now, I mean, the company's name is Hurricane Group, but you started off with the website sofrep.com, SOFREP.com, which is a great website, on military news, SEAL news, current events, and so on. I encourage people to check it out.
Foreign policy, too. We're big on foreign policy news.
Yeah. So you have lots of products. You have everything from books, podcasts, websites. You're a real media company. You've flirted with different offers for acquisitions and investment and so on. And I can see you've really used these principles, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about each one of the 7. But let's go back to to the loss for a second, because I feel like, well, first off, there's a lot of vets, like as you mentioned, coming out of the military. They have no idea what to do next. And often that first failure in quote unquote the real world is really sends them off on a spiral, which they can't come out of. And I think it's just a shame. I think it's a cliche to say how the government treats its vets, because I don't know. I don't know why that's a cliche. It's just everyone says it. But I think vets need to take a little bit more responsibility. The government's it's like saying, Amtrak treats their customers really poorly. You can't expect the government's the one who sent you over there. The government's not going to take care of you when you get back. So they don't care. And so a book like this and a business like yours really shows people, okay, here's how you take care of yourself. But let's talk about your loss. Like, so you dabbled in, one of the first things you did, from what I understand, is you dabbled in some real estate. What happened?
Yeah, I've always loved real estate. My dad was in construction his whole life. He ended up being a developer. And I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that got me in the military. I said, well, you know what? I need to start saving. And I want to buy a rental property. So I bought a rental property, fixed it up on the side and rented it out in Ocean Beach, San Diego. I ended up being a fourplex on Del Monte Avenue. Those of you familiar with Ocean Beach, San Diego. It was an amazing property. Flipped it, made a bunch of money. And
what year was this?
This was probably right during the housing boom before it all went to hell.
So you had
2000.
You had some benefits.
Yeah, this is probably for sure. I was buying apartment buildings, multifamily residential in a boom. Like I would, in a year or two, just massive increases in equity, and then flip it and then trade it up into a bigger property. I actually was so frustrated with the lack of professionalism in the real estate agents, because everyone was jumping on the real estate bandwagon, right? Like I think to be a hairdresser requires more training to be a real estate agent in California. So I remember,
particularly at that time. Well, that might be true now also, but I think at that time they were just throwing licenses at everyone and everybody wanted one because there was so much money there.
So I ended up getting my license. I studied this Principles of Real Estate course online, read this whole book, and took my test and got my license and started buying my own properties. Did really well. I got one property I got short and had to short sell, which is humbling. I had to sell it at a loss. And
why did that happen?
Because the housing market crashed. And
okay, so this is like now 2006, 2007?
This would have been 2006.
So by the way, it's just interesting. This has nothing to do with this podcast, but I want my readers to note, or listeners, the housing market actually crashed in 2006, but the stock market crashed in 2008. It wasn't because, this is totally off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Wall Street and the financial system didn't crash because the housing market crashed. The housing market goes through its ups and downs, but it was the invention of all these financial derivatives and the mad rush of literally trillions of dollars betting on houses on top of the normal housing market that caused the financial market to crash. Anyway.
Yeah, no, and I, speaking of that, I think we're in for another housing correction, I think in the next 18 months.
That's probably true, because I actually think housing business is probably an interesting business. So I'm like, for housing, I am the reverse correlator.
Yeah. But I had made this money in real estate and had a nest egg. And when I decided to get out, I did some contracting part-time when I got out of the SEAL teams in 2006 because I was fried. I was burnt out. And I have this philosophy I've always had since I had my first job when I was 13. If I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I'm going to find something else to do.
Did you really have that philosophy? Because I feel like, to be honest, I only had that philosophy after I turned 40 years old. I think before then, I was on this eager hunger for money, thinking that once I have X, then I could have that philosophy. And it turned out it was not having your philosophy you just said of always doing what you enjoy doing that caused me. I had this skill set for making money, but then it would always cause me to lose all my money because I I wasn't grounded somehow in doing what I enjoy doing. You only have one life, and that life has to be grounded in enjoyment, or else your life dies.
So I think I was fortunate to learn at a young age. Remember one of the first jobs I had was to clean up, basically an after-school janitor for this boat shop in Ventura Harbor, because my parents and I, we lived on a sailboat. And I would have to mop this place and clean, and I hated it. It was just a miserable
Your
job.
parents and you totally lived on a sailboat?
Yeah, no, we had a 47-foot catch named Agio. And my sister, myself, my black Cocker Spaniel dog, we all lived on this boat.
And you left the sailboat every day to go to school?
Yeah, which is it was, looking back, very cool, but at the time you're kind of in California living on a sailboat. You're the boat kids, and so you kind of get made fun of at school.
So like instead of like the trailer park, you were the boat kids?
Yeah, I was the boat kid. So, but it was a great lifestyle, and it was practical from my parents. They loved sailing. They wanted to do this, series of big sailing trips, which we did. But it was also a cheap way to live. It was a very inexpensive way to live. And my dad had lost a company built from scratch, a construction business in Canada. And so he was kind of dealing with his own rebuilding phase. But
did he rebuild?
He did. It took him a long time. His relationship to money, it took him a long time to get over that. And I learned a lot from that growing up as a kid, seeing how it affected him.
So when you first had that failure, so my guess is that short selling of that first house kind of led to more and more, as it led to more and more deeper failures. Did you ever feel like your life was going to run parallel to your dad's and you were scared of that?
I think I always harbor a little bit of, that, like, I don't want to end up and be like my father. Like, there's some very positive things I take away from that experience. So I always try to learn from it and be different. Like, I have a very different relationship to money than he does to this day. But to back up real quick, I had this crappy job and then got this amazing job working on this scuba diving boat and got to dive the most incredible spots in the Channel Islands. And it was a tough job, but I loved what I did. I had so much fun doing it. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to have jobs like this. And I've always had that philosophy. I went to the Navy, became a SEAL, and had a great run, almost 10 years. But when it stopped being fun and it started to create stress in my life. And
why?
I could see I was having problems. I was in my marriage. I was deployed all the time. I had lost touch with, my wife, my kids. My son was born when I was in Afghanistan in 2001. And I said, I want to be around to see my kids grow up. And so I got out. I got out of the military early. People thought I was crazy. I was meritoriously promoted to E6, which is a rank. Was ranked number 1 in my command. Got promoted on the spot. Went to the sniper program. I was working in a job that was supposed to be filled by a senior rank than I was, and so I got instantly, first time up for chief petty officer, I got promoted to that and had this amazing career. I could have done anything, went anywhere, and I decided to get out. And people thought, I remember we have a guy that is in charge. We call it a detailer. He picks where people go next. They assign jobs. He thought I was leveraging for a better position. I said, no, I'm out of here. And so I left in 2006. And I had built up, I'd had a large success in the real estate investing. I'd lost the one property to short sale, but still had a nice nest egg and had this idea as a trainer, seeing how the military and law enforcement community in Southern California had a shortage of areas to train, and that's driver training, to train to drive an ambulance or a fire truck. They just didn't have anywhere to go. They'd have to rent a stadium parking lot where the San Diego football team played. So I said, I'm going to build this massive training facility out in the desert, and it's going to solve all the law enforcement military's problems. And similar.
Can I ask, you that sounds like a great idea, but let me ask you, before you made one, with every great idea, I always feel like, how do you boil that down into an easy first step? So an easy first step would have been to go to, let's say, the San Diego police chief,
Yep.
where you were in San Diego. You had a relationship with them just because the Navy is all over San Diego,
Yeah.
so they're going to take a meeting, right?
Yeah.
You could have said, "Hey, if I do this, would you use it?" That would have been that would, in my mind, that would have been an easy first step.
Which I did in probably out of order. The first thing I did was write a business plan, which provided a lot of learning for me. I didn't know how to read a financial statement, and I didn't want to get into the P&L and the numbers. And I had a friend of mine, Randy, is like, because you don't want to do it, you need to do it. You need to learn. And once you learn how to read a financial statement, it's basic arithmetic,
Yeah.
I look at it now, I'm like, it's basic addition, subtraction, but it's intimidating.
A lot of people, like, I've never learned or read a book on how to read a financial statement. But when you're running a business, you want to know how the business is doing. And there's many ways to slice the numbers of a financial statement. There's how much cash is coming in versus how much cash is going out. There's also how much revenue have we booked in deals versus how much we're spending and how fast is that revenue coming. Anyway, there's to make the
cash flow
point,
management.
it actually helps you become a better businessman, even if you don't have a formal education on it.
Absolutely. And it's not hard to learn. You got to put in the work. So writing this business plan, developing a financial model really taught me a ton. And then I got partners. I chose poorly on the partner side. And I think it's important to say, just when I say I chose poorly, it's not a ding on my partners.
No, not at all.
They're smart, capable.
It's a ding on you.
It's a ding on me. And we didn't have complementary skill sets. We had conflicting skill sets, and we had no chemistry. And that's like, personal relationships always not going to end well. And I think that's an important lesson I talk about in Total Focus is
yes,
choosing partners better and doing due diligence, because people are so eager to just, jump into bed and then, and they're like, oh God, what just happened? I'm in I've split a company 50-50 with this person and I want a divorce now. And it's a nightmare.
Oh my God, it's happened to me so many times. But
me too.
You mentioned this a lot in the book, but I really want to stress people are everything. Like, you need a product for the people to kind of focus around, but that product often shifts. The people often don't. And when you start a business, it's not like, oh, me and a product and some customers. There are so many stakeholders in that business that you have to treat equally and think about and think several moves ahead about. Of course, there's the customers, but there's also your employees, there's your partners, there's investors, there's potential acquirers, there's your family. There's a lot of stakeholders in what you're doing, and you have to think about all of them if you want to have a successful business. And I think you cover that well in this book. I think that's more important than the product itself, because as we know, products can shift. You've shifted your latest business several times. I don't want to use the word pivot because sometimes shift is a better word than pivot. It's not like you changed 100% your business.
Yeah, I agree.
But okay, so sorry, go ahead.
So my this business plan that I was writing was to do this training facility that lets law enforcement, government use, a facility in the desert to do driver training, shooting training. And so I made this plan, but it was like a product, right? Great plan on paper, but we needed land. So I ended up searching for land and found 1,000 acres that was well suited. We thought it could get through a county planning process and the permitting, and got the land. And we started to raise money because we actually had something tangible now.
When you say you got the land, what does that mean?
We purchased it with an owner carry. So I put some money down. We had it in contract, and then we went out, started raising money, mostly friends and family. And, over a few years, we raised close to $4 million the hard way, like all angels.
Wow.
We had a small private equity company make an investment.
What were you doing in the meantime while you were raising this money?
So we were raising money and learning the hard way what it's like to take a piece of raw land through an entitlement or planning process, which is expensive. Just to do the environmental study in California, we had to give the county planning department $250,000, and they ran a bid to go pick an environmental company to do this environmental impact report called an EIR. We couldn't pick who did the report. We had no choice. We just had to write the big check. And
this is all before you have San Diego saying, or LA or whoever saying, we're going to send all our drivers to learn in your facility.
We actually did along the way, we got every major law enforcement agency in the county of San Diego and the county of Imperial County. And Imperial County was just over the county line. If you drive east from San Diego into the desert, it was about an hour, 45 minutes to our property, but it was just over the county line. Imperial County is still, I think, the poorest county in the nation, like extremely high unemployment, but they have a massive border patrol agency because they're right on the Mexican border. A lot of law enforcement. The community is actually a really, really neat community out there. And we had gotten every police chief behind us. And, fast forward 3.5 years later, we got unanimous through the planning commission. It went to the county supervisors. These board of supervisors had to vote. They voted 4-5 in favor. A month later, the Sierra Club chapter of the San Diego, and they were really contentious. I like a lot of the values of the Sierra Club, protecting the environment. That's all good. But this chapter turned political, and they saw us as like the antichrist of the military establishment.
But at the same time, the goal of better training of like an ambulance driver, a police driver, a police shooter, the ultimate goal is to save lives so that they're more accurate and they don't endanger people on the street and they get people to hospitals faster or to, they chase people without killing people.
The big problem was a book called Blackwater came out, and I'm friends with the author, Jeremy Scahill. It was about Eric Prince and this massive contracting company, and Blackwater had a facility on the East Coast, and they tried to do something in San Diego the same time we were doing our project, and they got just basically thrown out of San Diego by protesters. And we were seen as this like shadow front for Blackwater because Eric Prince, the founder, was a SEAL, but he's a billionaire SEAL. He inherited $1 billion from his auto parts empire that his father left him. And we ended up getting the project approved, and then the Sierra Club sued the county for the environmental report, which put the project in kind of a 2-4 year delay. And our investors, this was right around 2009, and the markets crashed. It was just a mess. Nobody wanted to put money behind this thing. And so, long story short, I had to walk away from this entire...
What that morning, you're making the decision, what did that look like? How do you make the decision to walk away from something you've poured years of your life into, you've poured your own money into, you've got friends and family money in it, and you have to tell them, hey, it's not working out? Like what made you decide, or not made you decide, because obviously the situation did, but just what was that morning like?
It was rough. I remember having a conversation with my lawyer and friend, John Tischler, who had invested in the project himself. And we had this conversation around, look, he said, I see entrepreneurs, this happens all the time. Just because you have a failure doesn't mean you're a quitter. Because that was what I was struggling with. The distinction between...
Again, interesting how it's personal and internal rather than a matter of dollars and cents.
Yeah. And I had this thing like, wow, I've failed. I felt like a quitter and a loser. And then what I realized, having this conversation and realizing I have to let it go, was the light came on. And I said, wait a minute, this is... like, I've learned so much. Like, it's terrible. It's not a pleasant thing to lose your parents' money, your friends' money, your time, 3.5 years. But I said, you know what? I have learned so much in this process and about just running a business, financing a business. I had the skills to go out and borrow money from the SBA to buy a cash flowing business if I wanted to.
I saw that in the book, and I don't want to go over the details of that, but I think it's really fascinating that everyone thinks, oh, I have an idea, now I'm going to get venture capital. You sort of show in this book, there's lots of ways to raise money, and money should not be an obstacle to starting a business with a good idea.
Yeah,
so I think that's
absolutely.
a great point. We still haven't even gotten to the principles of total focus, but that's because I do want to kind of say that I want you to continue with what you did at actual bottom. Like did you cry that day as opposed to along with having that conversation with John?
I didn't cry that day, but a month. In this period, it was about, I want to say a month later. It's just it's tough to recall exactly, but
You blacked it out.
yeah, probably. But I'll be completely honest. My wife and I were really working hard on the marriage. We were in counseling. We had both done things to each other over the years that we regretted, and so we were trying to work through this. And I was coaching Little League and really enjoying being a dad and living in this beautiful house in San Diego. And then I remember we were in counseling, and the moment that she said, "Look, I just don't want to be married to you. Like, I respect you. I always love you. You're the father of my children, but I just know what I want, and you're not it. Like, I want kind of a 9-to-5 guy. You're an entrepreneur. You got all these crazy ideas." And I
But you were a 9-to-5 guy during part of this time. Like you would work for I didn't even quite understand what you were doing, but you said you worked for a major defense guy.
Well, that was after I ended up having to take a regular kind of 9-to-5 job after, which I did not. I learned a lot, but I did not like. It wasn't what I.
What does a guy like you
wanted to
do for a defense contractor? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I'll finish real quick and then I'll get right into that. But so my wife says I'm leaving, and by the way, school starts in less than a month, so I'm taking the kids up to my parents' ranch, and I am alone in a 3-bedroom house, had to break a lease, have all the conversations with the neighbors, deal with losing everything, and then I have this responsibility, right? Like, I still have to provide for my children.
How long did it go before how regular were you seeing them?
I mean, I was every day. I mean, I was coaching, like I said.
No, I mean after she moved.
I would see him, there was times it would be probably a couple times a month. So that was tough. And I had to let go because legally she couldn't do it, but
we have to be friends.
Yeah. I said, you know what? Happy mom, happy kids. So I made all these decisions to make sure that she was taken care of and happy because the kids needed a happy mother. And we worked through so much that I think we both developed this mutual respect for each other and saw how our kids bounce back because we both really told them that we love them. And so I think there's a lot of lessons in that in divorce. And you do need two parties that will work together on that. But we had a great divorce and our kids are amazing. We're great friends to this day. I had the last 2 Thanksgivings I've had with her husband and the kids at my friend's farm in Oregon, all of us together.
But that moment, because I've been through it before, it's weird how we have some parallels. That moment when you're both experiencing business failure, real estate failure, and that thought that, oh my gosh, I might not be there when my kid's having a nightmare in the middle of the night. Yeah, like that brutal. Is just really the most depressing moment. For me, it was.
Oh, yeah, completely depressing. I had to adjust my whole life to be a different kind of father. And to this day, it's like I have a different, it's not a traditional relationship, but it works. And I see my friends who are divorced that see their kids much more than I do, but it's, the quality of time maybe isn't there. And they're still in an adversarial relationship with an ex. And it's just, I have a really, really great relationship with their mom, her husband, and my kids. And the time we do spend is super high quality.
So you're on the ground. Everything's at its worst moment in every way. You've got like the trifecta of bad things happening, not to mention global events. Yep. In 2009, nobody knew. Everybody thought capitalism, there was a slight chance it might tipsy over and die and the world was going to change. And, and we're still in these ugly wars and just everything bad is happening. What's the first step off the ground? And then finally we're going to get into the principles of total focus.
Yeah. So, the first reality that I had was like, I need to go get a job.
So it's a need thing. It's like you force yourself because you have to. You can't give up. You can't say, oh, forget it, I'm giving up?
I had made a decision that I was going to rebuild and either buy a business or start one. Like that decision was made. I said, I have the skill sets. And I talk about this in the book as well. Embrace the suck. It's looking at adversity as a chance to learn and grow, and that there's all these valuable lessons rather than get caught up in the negativity and the negative self-talk. So I had this, story I was telling myself now, like, look, I've learned these lessons. I'm going to do this. I can do this, but I need to take a job and rebuild my savings, pay off some bills.
Let's stop to take a quick break. We'll be right back. To all the freelancers listening right now, if you could reclaim up to 192 hours a year of your precious time, would you? If you're doing the math, 192 hours could save you 2 working days per month. Luckily, our friends at FreshBooks makes ridiculously easy cloud accounting software for freelancers. By simplifying tasks like invoicing, tracking expenses, and getting paid online, FreshBooks has drastically reduced the time it takes for over 10 million people to deal with their paperwork. If that's not enough incentive, the FreshBooks platform has been rebuilt from the ground up. They've taken simplicity and speed to an entirely new level and added powerful new features. And if you're not using FreshBooks yet, now would be the time to try, because FreshBooks is offering an unrestricted 30-day free trial for all of my listeners. No credit card required. All you have to do is go to freshbooks.com/James and enter the James Altucher Show in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Relationships are complicated. Just keeping up with the people we love can be hard work. And when it comes to customers, it can be even tougher. That's why Zendesk, our newest sponsor, thank you, Zendesk, builds software to help businesses build better customer relationships. With products like a smart knowledge base, live chat, phone support, and ticketing all connected in one place, Zendesk streamlines customer conversations. I can't tell you how important this is. You have to have everything on one dashboard, or else you lose track of what your customers want and need. Turns out only 25% of customers choose the phone as the first channel for reaching customer service. That means that 75% would rather reach out via chat, email, social media, or help themselves in your knowledge base. In Zendesk, every channel you'd need is baked right in, all tied to the same analytics and reporting. And best of all, your agents can seamlessly switch between channels without having to end the conversation. And don't worry, more channels doesn't mean an unmanageable stream of tickets. Companies using Zendesk solve 39% of their customer support questions on the first response. Oh, very important. And Zendesk likes to keep it sweet with its own customers too, with a 95% customer satisfaction score to prove it. For your in-laws, you're on your own. But for your customers, try Zendesk. Schedule a demo today and see for yourself. Visit zendesk.com/James. That's zendesk.com/James.
By the way, the chapter, Embrace the Suck, I would say that's probably my favorite chapter in the book. Because it's not about, okay, I have to get through this and then learn from it. It's like, okay, this is happening right now, and I've got to turn this mush into something positive.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, I'm going through a hard thing, but then I'm going to get out of it and I'm going to learn from the failure, and or not. Like, a lot of people can't embrace the suck and they just sort of die with it and change their lives in a negative way because of it. But I think Stephen Colbert, the talk show host, just had an interview, I think it was either in Vanity Fair or Esquire, where he talks about where he used to do improv and stand up and so on. And sometimes, no matter what, you bomb. Okay, of course, I'm reading this because I'm trying to learn this skill set. It's not like what he said then is exactly what you say here. He said you've got to enjoy the bomb. You say embrace the suck. It's not like he's going to get through it and then analyze it later. He said you have to fully get into it, and he says enjoy it. You say embrace it. Maybe talk about that a little more. Like, when things are bad and you're just at your worst moment, it's hard to say to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm alive and this is what happens to people who are alive, it's not always great. Sometimes it's really bad. And I'm going to figure out how to embrace this. Like, how do you embrace it?
It's your attitude around when things aren't going right. I think is the habit, like changing your habit to get into the habit of when things aren't going right, something happens. And I'll 2 quick examples. We did this big UK versus US special operations boxing match last year in London. Sold out event at York Hall. And my guys were live streaming it. It's the first time we did a live stream event on Facebook. And shit was going down. It was like we had connectivity issues, and we'd rehearsed this a day in advance, and stuff started to blow up, and my guys were freaked out. My media guys, because I'm there like the boss, like, and I could see my media director Nick was just losing it, and I said, "Look, take a deep breath, calm down." I was like, "Nothing ever goes to plan. Like, we're just gonna learn from this and get better next time. So don't worry. Like, just don't worry about it. You just do what you got to do to salvage whatever you can." And it was that seeing like the physical change in his body when I told him that, and it was okay to be dealing with all this stuff. He just changed and was like, "Thank you," and he was able to clear everything out and focus on the task. So there was that. That's an example. And I've talked with you a lot about this, but my 13-year-old daughter read something terrible somebody had said about me on social media, and I got upset initially, and then I stopped myself and I said, "Wait a minute. This is a really good chance to take this opportunity to teach her a life lesson, because she's an artist. She's into making her own movies in school now." And I say, "Look, this is going to happen in life. Like, anytime you want to do something, there will always be people that just aren't in a good place that will say and do things to kind of distract you, and you've got to learn to deal with it. Like, it just happens." And so I had this incredible learning experience that I turned this crappy situation into a positive. And
well, I think the key words there is this is a really good chance. And it's not just to teach her a lesson, but for you, it taught you a lesson. It's like, okay, I can get really angry about this because I don't want my 13-year-old daughter listening to this, so I'm going to get really angry at whoever said that. But you instead said, okay, I'm not going to it's not about that person who said whatever stupid thing he said. It's about you transforming it into something that it's you knowing that you're allowed to transform it into something positive, as opposed to viewing it as life's out of our control. Things are out of our control all the time. Yeah. And so you have, like, I've had a horrible thing happen to me once, just a couple of years ago or a year and a half ago. And instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, why do these horrible things keep happening to me?" I said, "Look, no matter where you are in life, horrible things happen. That's just life." And I said the same thing you said. This is a really good chance, X. Like, and in my case, X was, I write about all these things I always do when I am on the ground, struggling and crying and whatever. This is a really good chance again for me to see if it works. And it did. And that's an important lesson for me. Yeah. So this is a really good chance too, is good words to remember.
Absolutely. I dislocated my shoulder skiing in March in the French Alps. And
oh, look at you, French Alps, skiing, UK versus US boxing, and your media empire.
It was a part of this.
Do you have a pen? I want to write down all these totally elitist things Brandon is saying.
Yeah, I'm an elitist. Yeah. So devastating injury. I couldn't tie my own shoes for 2 weeks. But I said,
how'd you go to the bathroom?
That was tough. I had to learn how to wipe my butt with my left hand, essentially.
But you were in France, so you had a bidet.
Yeah, France, which I did have a bidet, so that made things easier. But I mean, it was tough. It was a tough injury. I was right in the middle of shooting a documentary called Big Mountain Heroes, which, to your point earlier, was about changing the narrative of veterans being victims and getting prescribed all this pain medication at the VA. The message was, hey, pull your socks up. You have all these skills. You can use the outdoors and alternative therapy as opposed to just feeling down and buying into this victim mentality at the
What's the documentary called?
Big Mountain Heroes.
And where can someone see it?
They can see the trailer right now on YouTube, and the film will be out in November. I'll invite you to the screening.
Oh, I'd love
in
to
October.
go to that.
It'll
Yeah,
be at
thanks.
Soho House in October. So it's an amazing project, and I'm right in the middle of this, and with my bum shoulder now. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to get through this, and then at the time, I was really getting into learning about. So back to your point, like, this is a good chance for me now to like dig in and really learn about paid acquisition on social media. I really want to understand how these ad campaigns are created on Facebook, the whole CAC to LTV ratio, the customer acquisition cost to lifetime value. And so I was like,
All very important things.
I was like, I can, I can't go out and ski. I'm going to read and just get into this and learn it.
Particularly, like, what year was this again?
This was this year.
Yeah, so I always view there's like old school ad agencies, which is like, oh, we'll make your company a big brand, we'll make a TV spot, a radio spot, a print spot. But the modern ad agency, which is what you were starting to define just there, really has to understand lifetime value of a reader, of an email subscriber, of a paid subscriber, how to acquire those subscribers. Doesn't matter if you're a big brand or a small brand.
Yep.
So what you were learning there is critical, essentially for any company, but particularly for any agency or media company. That's very important stuff.
And I went through 2 agencies before we found one that actually could do what they said they could do.
Because
And-
that's why you had to find one that actually understood that was the modern agency.
Yeah, because this stuff you can't learn in a class at Harvard,
Right.
or any of these colleges. Our guy that runs our program today is self-taught, very smart, young kid that really understands it and is now training up a team.
What's the most important thing you've learned someone needs to know in terms of this sort of modern customer acquisition stuff?
You have to know your numbers, right? We talk about the P&L, and so monitoring your customer acquisition costs. And I'll be honest with the audience, our acquisition cost is $60 on average for about a $360 customer.
And when you say what are you acquiring? You're acquiring a customer who's going to buy product from you, not just a viewer of your website.
Yep.
Someone who actually is going to buy.
He's going to
product.
subscribe to one or more digital products. He may have bought we have the gear club for men called the Crate Club. He may buy a Crate Club, but we're counting on him to either.
Okay, what was in last month's Crate Club? Because this is a great business.
Yeah, so our premium was this incredible. Our most popular product today was this med kit that was designed by a special ops medic. So it has everything. If you were taking a world trip and wanted a medical kit that you could put in your suitcase and have and basically treat anything that comes up, from like suture yourself up Rambo style, or just a basic, we call it a boo-boo kit. It's the Band-Aids, the bacitracin, antibiotic ointment. This thing is amazing. Like airways, we provided instructions on how to like self-treat. And so that was one of our
How
items.
much space does that take up in the carry-on bag? I'm sorry to go off on this tangent.
Yeah, not much.
I want to buy one.
Yeah, we can.
But it can't take up too much space in my carry-on bag.
It's
That's my
not.
only
The bag is like this big.
Okay.
It's very small. I'll hook you up.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
good.
get you one. So, back to the lifetime value. It's the lifetime value of this customer. He may go away and come back, but we're counting on him to be around and spend about $360.
So
on
what that
average.
tells you is, if you know the lifetime value of a customer is $360, you could spend some percentage of that, like let's say $100 or $150 or even $362 to get that customer.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a profitable customer.
I run my business very differently because we're not venture backed. I built it, on my own, and so we're running it out of cash flow. There's companies like my friend Matt Meeker, who I talk about in
Yes.
Total Focus also. Matt is venture backed. His amazing business with BarkBox. It's the dog subscription box company. They will spend nearly up to their customer value to convert, because they want to convert customers more quickly. I talked to my other friend, Nick Ganju. Nick Ganju he co-founded ZocDoc. Amazing guy. And he was telling me, because he respects what I do. He says, look, I respect that you're growing a business and really focused on the bottom line. Have been in the black since day one, which we have.
The benefits of being non-venture backed, by the way.
Because you really learn that sales can solve a lot of problems. And I see...
And you're not asking for welfare from venture capitalists.
Yes, and that's what it is. You hit it on the head. Like so many young entrepreneurs today use raising money as a form of welfare. And it's like, look, you can sell your way out of this. Like come up with a product and sell it. Like sales and revenue actually solves a lot of problems.
I mean, my first venture-backed company, I've started a lot of companies. My very first one was, we had no venture, I didn't even know what the word venture capitalist means. So we were profitable from day one. My second company, I was more quote unquote sophisticated. And so we raised $30 million. And man, I spent that money so fast. We probably ended up raising close to $100 million overall. And then we went out of business.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so, I'm spending to acquire customers at a profit. Like we spend $1 on Facebook. We make $3-4 in return, and we spend 6 figures on Facebook. I wish I could spend 7 because we keep those ratios in order. I was talking to my friend Nick Ganju, and he's like, "This is how crazy it gets, Brandon." And and ZocDoc has $1 billion valuation. It's a great business. And Nick was like, "This is what I see and how crazy it is. People they'll say their customer, let's say their customer value is $500, and they'll say, but our valuation is going to be 10-15x. So they'll take a 10-15x on their customer value and spend up to that, maybe not over it, but that's how like crazy these people get in the venture capital world and acquiring customers, because they're basically buying revenue.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you look at like a classic case is 2000 or 1999, where the entire market capitalization of the stock market was based on eyeballs rather than profits. And, ultimately the tide comes in and you see everyone who's naked. Yeah. And I really encourage people not to, so a week ago, I was in this very same room and I was doing a podcast for Gimlet Media called The Pitch, where it was like, it was 4 of us investors and entrepreneurs would pitch us. And some were great, worthy of investments. Others, not so much. But I would say, look, you have a great idea and you're building it. Why don't you, instead of raising money at a $5 million valuation, why don't you sell it for $5 million, get rich, and start your next company?
Yeah.
So that's often a viable, good idea. But everybody, we get into this like VC kind of Silicon Valley like hype culture, and that's a path only a few people should take.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I couldn't agree more. I see so many people, they just like, I'm going to get funding. I was like, wait a minute, why are you getting funding? Like, you have a business plan. Everything is in place to go sell the product and make money. Like, just go sell and make a business. Like,
so how did you get $1? And by the way, we've only talked about one of your 7 principles. We've talked about embrace the suck. Yeah. And I want to kind of underline, this is not one of your 7 principles, but when you say this is a really good chance to, I think that's an important thing that almost should be included in your principles. Yeah. But we've talked about embrace the suck, but we're gonna gradually get through them. But how did you make $1 of profit with SoftRep.com?
So SoftRep, we made our first money. Before I launched the site, and then I'll answer your question earlier, like what does a guy do at a defense company? So I got this job at a defense company. They specialize in communications. They had
meaning.
So radios, signals, intercept. So these boxes that would suck in cell phone signals, radio signals, triangulate the signal and get a position and then figure out where the enemy's at. And so they had a classified program. So they needed somebody that had a top secret clearance or could get a top secret clearance. And they needed, their customer was the Special Operations Command, and they needed somebody that could relate to the end user and then come back to the engineering department and stop the engineering department from spending millions of dollars on, we call it IRAD, internal research and development, on maybe upgrades or components of the product that weren't going to be viable or useful in the field. Because engineers are great. They love to invent crazy stuff. But I'm like, look, For one, don't put that button over here. It's going to snag on your backpack. Two, we don't need that mod. It's just not useful to guys. And so I would act as that interface to keep the end users happy. And this contract was worth $40 million a year to this company. And then, I was a business development executive. So I, as a director, would map out, how do we grow this business, keep it in place, and then what are the other opportunities? And so I would, for instance, they had been trying to get into the Predator drone. That drone is like valuable real estate. And General Atomics makes the drone, but they don't make a lot of their own technologies that go on the drone, whether it's the cameras, the sensors. And so we wanted to integrate some of the technology on the drone. And they've been trying to get a meeting for General Atomics for a long time. And like most things in business, it's relationship driven. I had known Lyndon Blue Jr., who was the head of the Predator program. He was the founding brothers of General Atomics. So I knew the son. I had a friend that was in the SEAL community that was working as an executive there. So I got us in a meeting within a couple months and like in the pipeline for what, will probably turn out to be, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue.
So having that relationship built up perhaps over a decade or more of building relationships, you had this one that essentially provided you with a good job and income for at least a year.
Yeah, I was making more money than I ever made in my life. I had an incredible boss. She was a girl boss, but I grew up in the defense industry as a female. And just had learned so much, but felt like a caged animal. Like I would go on these trips, bring back these amazing opportunities, and then I would, come to the office maybe an hour late because I'm like, look, I just got back from the East Coast. I mean, like, where are you? You have to be at the office and in a suit in the cubicle, or I actually was fortunate to have my own office, but I'm just like, come on. To me that I'm like, I'm not, it's not about being busy. It's about what you're producing as results. And that's another thing I talk about in Total Focus it's a big difference between just being busy and actually getting stuff done, working smarter, not harder. And so I knew within 6 months that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I was running a blog on the side as a passion project, and I saw an opportunity to create this special ops website in 2012, called up some relationships I had. I was running a blog for military.com called Kit Up and grew it to their top blog in a very short period of time.
What was your focus as opposed to the other blogs on the site?
So the biggest one at the time was defense tech. So it was all defense technology. I just was I realized that when I told a equipment story and related it to a Navy SEAL experience, or had one of my other writers that I recruited talk about it, and tell a story about this piece of equipment, it went crazy.
And I just want to stress that too. Like, I feel like there's all these things, all these valuable insights ancillary to the 7 principles of total focus. We're getting out of focus on total focus, but we're always going to get to them.
Yeah.
But I was giving a talk at Columbia the other day, and my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, came to watch it. And after the talk, being insecure, I asked her, how did it go? How did it do? And she's like, it's always so great and so interesting when you tell the actual stories. Like, people don't remember. The human brain's not really meant to remember facts. Like, if you just say, oh, this defense equipment has these specs and this, that doesn't work. Like, the human mind is 70,000 years ago, we had no written language. The only way to pass info from generation to generation was to tell a story. So we're meant to take this image that we have in our head and transmit it to other heads so that they learn from it. Only through storytelling is the only bridge. There's no other bridge. Even writing a book is not a bridge. The book has to tell a story.
Yeah. And so I heard, this is me putting on my sniper instructor hat. I heard you say I'm insecure, and you don't show up in the world as insecure. So I just want you, and I think people, we are who we are in the world based on like a collection of observations, right? And I don't think you show up as insecure at all.
Well, I think
And that's kind of the self-talk, because
Yeah.
we are our worst enemies at that. I catch myself.
we are our worst enemies at it, but that's why the quicker you can say, "Oh, I'm feeling," so you have the negative feeling, which always
Yeah.
pops up, like, "Oh, I'm feeling insecure." The quicker we could say, "This is a really good chance too,"
Yeah,
is
exactly.
then how we learn. So I asked my daughter this question. A, I'm building a bond with the daughter, so this is a really good chance to build a bond with the daughter. And B, with her response, I'm able to really quickly say, okay, that further confirms my belief, which I've believed in for decades, but it further underlines the understanding that storytelling is everything. It's how you
Absolutely.
communicate
So important.
ideas, motivations, products, everything. You could have the best product in the world, but if you don't have a story around it, your business is over.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Betsy Morgan has a daughter that's close to our daughter's age, but every time my daughter comes to the city, we do this brunch and then take the girls out for nails and stuff. So we got to get your daughter in the mix.
Oh yeah, and Betsy, by the way, you mentioned in your book, we haven't talked about her yet on the podcast, but I've known her. She was at CBS. I pitched when she was at CBS. I had a company, StockPicker.com, which I pitched to her. She was the CEO of the Huffington Post when I started writing for the Huffington Post. Then she goes oddly from the Huffington Post to the Blaze, like complete opposite side of the political spectrum.
I talk about it in Total Focus, where the CBS, I think it was Les Moonves himself, who's an amazing guy at CBS, said, "Why are you leaving to go run an internet news site? Who's going to read internet?
Yeah.
Who's going to read news on the internet?" It was
Oh
like to
my
see
God.
what's happened today. It's like, she's like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm out of here.
And she did great at the Blaze too. And it was because of her I ended up on Glenn Beck's show a few times, and
She's great.
Yeah, she's a very good person. But all right, so you're building up the blog, and
Oh, how do I make my first dollar?
Yeah.
Was the question. So I had this experience running this other blog, and I had advertisers reaching out to me, and
personally,
because they're like, we can't get hold of anyone at military.com, and they had been acquired by Monster, and it was kind of a mess. I'd been up to the headquarters, and I saw like what happens when an acquisition doesn't go well.
by the way, 99% of acquisitions do not go well.
Yeah.
It takes a real special acquirer and acquiree to make an acquisition go well. Even though, by the way, that sounded like a great idea. Let's take, who doesn't want to hire a highly disciplined returning vet? So it's a great idea for Monster.com, which is a hiring company, to purchase a company with a military fan base. But if they don't know what to do with it from that point, it's not about the product, it's about relationships and the people involved.
Yeah. And so I saw them trying to advertise on this blog I was running and unable to. And so I had some contacts, and I reached out to them and said, look, I'm about to launch this site. I don't need I'm not looking for a bunch of money, but I think this is my projection on what we're going to do traffic-wise. Can you just sign up and give me $500 a month, and commit to a year just to help us launch? And so I went and signed up like 10, 15 of those before we even launched the site.
Bam. And that's
Yeah,
what you learned
bam.
from your real estate thing.
Yeah.
Like this is,
Sign
you
'em
built up. Yeah.
Yeah, sign
It's
them
almost
up
like you
and
did
get
your
money.
own personal Kickstarter of your business. And that's what people need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't need to go get money or do that. And
So let's repeat it just for people listening, because anybody can do this. You had some expertise built up over time, but anybody can really find, with a little bit of work, anybody can find some level of expertise and a very niche audience that will love that expertise. You just have to be a little better than all your readers, and you have to be good at storytelling. Then you basically signed up 6 to 10, whatever you said, people who said, okay, for $500 a month, we want to put an ad there, before you even launched one thing. So now you're in business.
Yeah,
You're in
I
business
had-
without spending a dime.
these people, they gave me their credit cards and said just charge it every month. And so
Man, I love it. Can
and
I
I'd shout out-
advertise on your blog?
yeah, Princeton Tech, actually, they make headlamps in New Jersey. They were a big supporter right out of the gate. And still now you talk about paying it forward. We just probably ordered $200,000 worth of Princeton Tech product from them on our last Crate Club.
What was the product?
Gearbox. It was a really cool
Oh, it's the flashlight?
headlamp.
Okay.
It's a wearable headlamp, which is great because your hand's free. And it has like a red light if you're camping and don't want to destroy your night vision. these like strobe lights for survival situations. They just make these really cool headlamps.
You know what I keep thinking about when you tell me these products? This is off focus now. I've been really thinking about the whole concept of gifting, and I don't really own products myself. I'm very much against, for myself personally, I don't like to own things. But
I'm a minimalist myself.
But I always think when I meet people and I have a good interaction with them, I want to send them a very special, thoughtful gift as opposed to like a box of chocolates or whatever. And I keep thinking there's a good gifting business around these things. So that's just something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, no, I think there's something there. Definitely.
So you start the business, and now let's finally. I want to just run down the 7 tips of total focus. I've been learning so much though along the way. I had to keep starting and stopping you, and you've built up this huge kind of. I don't even want to say military oriented media empire, but let's just call it that for a second.
I think it's military outdoor content because we do a lot of things. What Discovery Channel does with their military documentaries, their military storytelling, we do online. We have our, SVOD product, the subscription video on demand called SoftRip TV. We do all our own programming.
What do I get at that? What do I watch?
Training Cell. It's really cool series that follows former special ops guys around the world doing this. It's kind of like dirty jobs, right? So they were in Hawaii doing jungle warfare, rappelling down waterfalls. They were driving rally cars one episode.
Let me give you an idea. Get that, produce that as a show, and it doesn't matter where. Produce it on public access or some like really weird TV network that is barely launched, and keep the digital rights because they'll do that because they're looking for content. So they just need to fill up, Cablevision's channel 239. I'm making this up. And then now that it's officially called a TV show and it's on a cable network, you suddenly open up a great new distribution outlet, which is iTunes TV section. And so for then $9.99, you can sell all these shows. It's a whole new. They won't look at you because you're a website, but they'll look at you once you're on channel 239, which is stupid. But
you're spot on, and we're talking to 2 separate companies right now. Big publicly traded media businesses. Like they're like same thing because we see the value that like it'll be huge for us. So your first thing in total focus is stay focused, which I think people, and this is so important. This is going to be the most important thing we talk about here. People do not know what the word focus means. Yeah.
They think it means only focus on one thing, but it does and it doesn't. And understanding the gray area there is the key to business success. Yeah. So obviously you're focused on your business, but your business has a website, has Crate Club, has a TV thing, for all I know, you make clothes. For all I know, I know you're working on, I don't know if I could say it, we could blur it out. If I can't say it, you're working on romance novels in the military space. So you're doing, and you're probably doing 50 other things. You're very much not focused if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
What does focus mean? Because I'm the same way. I run a business in the 8 figures. We have a bunch of products. I also do other things that give me personal life satisfaction. And you also have to think about time with family, other investments that you're involved in, other friends that you have. So what does focus mean?
Sure. So how I kind of group it together is I think it's really important to have a personal plan. And what I mean by that is when I plan my year, I go, okay, this is what I want to accomplish in business. This is what I want to accomplish in my personal life. This is what I want to accomplish with my family. And I put all these actionable items that I want to accomplish throughout the year under. So if under family, for instance, I had a goal this year, a real goal was to visit my grandparents. They're in their 90s. They're in Canada, in Toronto. And so I put visit grandparents, buy tickets by February 1st. So there's an actionable item against it. And so
I like that. And people often say, ideas are worthless, execution is everything. But I think it's really important. What you just did was you tied an idea that was important to you. I want to visit my grandparents to an easy first actionable step.
Yeah. And then like take my daughter on a trip to New York. And then I said, again, buy tickets by this date. Or maybe the first thing was like, call mom, make sure it's okay, like this, schedule the block, and then buy tickets by this date.
So again, tying an idea,
Yeah, always
be closer to daughter
Yeah.
with several easy action steps, like calling her mom is an easy action step. People always think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with her in this city? I gotta keep her happy the whole time. No, just call her mom and see if it's okay. Easy first action step.
It's just the difference between being specific and non-specific would be like a goal would be, I want to be a better person. Well, what the hell does that mean? And what are you going to do to accomplish that? So you got to be specific. So I have my business, personal, family goals, and then I have a 5-year kind of, what do I want to be in 5 years? And that's, I want, like, one of my 5-year goals is to own a piece of beachfront real estate in the Caribbean. Like, and I want it in the, either Puerto Rico or U.S. Virgin Islands, so my friends can visit me. You and Kamal can come down on a 3-hour nonstop.
By the way, in Puerto Rico, you don't pay federal taxes.
Yeah, that's a whole other
that's your plan.
podcast. Yeah, but toes in the water, 20 minutes off the airplane, no passport. So that's part of my 5-year goal. So I have this plan, and once you have a plan and in place, and for me, my business, I look at it as 2 separate businesses. I have my books, and then I have my media company, and now e-commerce business, and both complement each other very well.
So in other words, it's okay because first off, there's a cliche, and it's a cliche for a reason. Men make plans and God laughs, because if you have a 5-year, I even think about what I thought on January 1st, how my year was going to turn out. In almost every single way, it didn't turn out that way, and yet I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
So shifting is okay, but what you're kind of saying is that focus allows for things that are connected to each other. It's planting a seed and growing a tree is focus, but all the branches are out of your control.
Yeah, it's like taking a trip on an airplane or a ship. You want to have an idea where your destination is going to be, and knowing, like, when you start the journey, whether it's a year or multi-year trip, like, the weather's going to change, stuff's going to happen, you're going to have to alter course here and there, but ultimately where you want to go. And to me, like, that the destination is having a plan. Like, this is a plan that anchors you. And when you have a plan and you know where you want to go in your business, personal, and family life, when you get these opportunities that come in, you can tell right away, is this aligned with where I'm going, or is it a distraction? Like, even you and I were talking about doing stuff. I'm like, that actually, it lines up with what I'm doing already. It's easy for me to do. I enjoy it. It lines up. But I have people come to me and say, I want you to sit on the board of this defense company. We're making this new thing. And I'm like, not interested at all. Like, immediate decline.
But let me ask you a question. Like, I at the beginning of this year, I had as kind of an enjoyable plan. It wasn't really connected with any business, but it was and it wasn't. Because for me, I think I like to try new things, learn new skills, and again, bring that knowledge of learning peak performance in another area. I like to bring that back into my business. So my plan in the beginning of this year was, I'm going to write a really nice, fun, engaging fiction novel. And it turns out this year is the first year since 2003. At this point, here we are in August or September. I have no plans at all to write a book, and I'm really happy about it because I switched from that plan. How do you reconcile that when things, and I'm doing everything I want to do?
Yeah, no,
I decided actually to ramp up this podcast instead as a direct replacement of that plan.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, like the weather shifted, and you trim the sails differently and just change course slightly.
So I had to come up with a broader way of what aligns. Like, what aligned for me was being
fine.
in doing something media, but something that, I don't know, I felt I could get more risk reward out of.
I think that happens. Like, you maybe start something and realize, okay, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to change this and sub in something else. I do that, but I try and really be specific. Because I also have, it's next year will be to finish my novel, which is about a serial killer in the military. But I know
love the premise.
But I know I have to, when I put that on my goal sheet, I can't just say write it or finish my novel. I need to say, from this date to this date, I'm going to write, 5,000 words a day or 3,000 words a day. And
I did write that down for myself. And then at some point I decided, you know what? I'm getting a lot of pleasure out of the podcast. And there's a lot of the podcast audience is growing. I'm not sure the novel audience is growing. Not that that should be the deciding factor. You should do what you love regardless. And again, I kind of took my specific idea and went a little bit meta above it. Like what I really wanted to do was reach an audience with things I believe in, and I can replace out novel and put in podcast. Maybe that's just me justifying changing the plans and not having focus.
It's okay to change the plan. I don't have any. I've changed the plan. I even had this year a goal because I love aviation and flying my own planes. I had a goal. I said multi-engine rating or float plane rating by this date. And so I ended up going to Europe and found out on Lake Como, Italy. You're going to put me in the elitist category again.
You're so fancy.
But the oldest seaplane club in the world is in Lake Como, Italy. And it's this beautiful lake. And I'm like, all right. And it was less expensive for me to go to Italy than Alaska to get my float plane rating. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Italy and like drink good wine, eat good meals, and watch these, beautiful people walk around and get my float plane rating and fly to the south of France.
But it sounded like your action steps changed, but not the plan.
Yeah, the plan. I ended up just by figuring out where I was in the year. I'm like, okay, this is easy for me to execute on. I'm going to put the multi-engine rating off till next year.
So I'm just wondering though, like, is it such a good thing to have these 5-year plans when you don't really know the future? You don't know what is going to inspire you or you're going to like 5 years from now.
It's kind of like my friend back to Lanny Basham. He said it was the best and worst day of his life winning the Olympic gold medal because he'd never put something out ahead. He didn't have something next. He's like, so the importance of when you're about to reach a major life goal is to put
particularly when you're so
there.
focused. He was only focused on marksmanship and the gold medal.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, now what? And I listened to an interview with Elon Musk a while back, and they said, why this mission to Mars? And he's like, I need something that's going to get me up in the morning and motivate me. And he's like, that's what I chose because I'm passionate about it.
But he's not just focused on that. He also has, he just started a company, Neuralink. He has Hyperloop. He has Tesla. He's working on solar energy. I'm sure he's working on battery power. So he's focused on many things. Again, I'm trying to understand. I mean, I know how I do it, but I want an easy explanation here of what's the difference between total focus. What does it really mean? Because obviously you're not focused. You got your flow, and in the bad definition of the word. So because you are very focused, but you said the float. You want this float plane rating, and at the same time you have 20 different divisions of your company. You're not just a website company, and I find people use the word focus in a very negative way, like, oh no, I'm just a website blogging company, so I can't do video, or I can't do podcast, or I can't launch a crate club thing, or get a float plane rating, because that would be out of focus. So they take focus to me. They take focus to mean too much focus. So where's the gray area? Where do I decide, like, okay, I'm within the definition of total focus?
I mean, the thing too is important to point out, like, as you have become more successful and have access to more resources, it buys capacity. Like when I was back in 2012 starting this business, I was razor focused on this. I wrote for probably a month straight, all-nighters, writing content to make sure when we launched this website that we had 30 days of content completely scheduled out before we even launched. And so there's times where you have to be laser focused. And then as you start to have success, and a guy like Elon Musk has so much capacity because he's a billionaire, and you can buy capacity that way. But he's also very passionate about what he does. Like that translates and is clear to me. And whether it's Solar City or SpaceX.
And they are all connected. I mean,
and that's, I think, important. They all connect
because they're all about. I would say Neuralink might be a little off. That's the one where you put chips in the brain and hook that up to the internet. But let's put that one aside. Hyperloop, SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City, which is now owned by Tesla. They're all about efficient uses of power to extend our ability to travel.
Yeah, and when you look at what I'm doing, in my business and writing, it's all about content, right? And now we're monetizing that content differently than advertising through e-commerce, but it's all about content. And so, when you came to me and say, hey, let's explore some ideas, and if it's content related, I'm in, because I'm doing it already. It's aligned with I call it a swim lane, right? Like, as long as it's in my swim lane, then I'm going to seriously consider that opportunity.
I think important to realize there is that what it sounds like is your swim lane got wider. So it's not like you started off in a very narrow swim lane. I'm gonna because I don't have the capacity for anything else at the moment, and because there's money coming in for this, I'm able to launch a business writing. So I'm gonna write all the time. This is 2012, 5 years ago.
Yep.
But as that starts, and you could then hire people to fill out more of the writing, you're able to expand that swim lane. I don't know if this is the right analogy. Swim lanes don't really expand, but you're not jumping into a different pool. Yeah. You're not saying I'm going to start a used car dealership with the money I'm making from my military blog.
Because I get those opportunities. I get them once a week, the same way you probably do. Somebody will come in and say, you're a sniper. I want you to help me start a training company in the U.S. We're going to take hunters that are spending $50,000 to go to Africa and hunt these big game animals. And I want you to part of this business. I'm going to pay you this, and you're going to be on my board, and this and that. I'm like, not interested. I'm in the media space, and so
in the media space, that's at first your swim lane was you were in the military blogging space. Yeah. It widens out. Now you're in the media space, so you're able to keep total focus, but you're allowed to widen that swim lane. And I just want to add one thing to that. Sometimes you could do things that other people might say, oh, that's not your focus. And I think, and I tend to do this. I do things that people can easily say, that's not in your focus. And then it's my challenge to connect the dots to make sure it is back in my focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I look at my plan last year, and I have an accountability partner in my entrepreneurs group, foreign mate, Solomon, who started 16 Handles in the city, that frozen yogurt chain.
Yeah.
Solomon and I meet month to month, and we go, here's my goals, here's where I'm at, and I'm probably 70% accomplished what I set out to in 2017 already. So, and I may add more to it, or just go, I'm going to take a break. I think spending time to yourself to think is super important.
That is very important.
Every Wednesday off is blocked. It's called a Brandon day. My assistant, I'm like, don't let anybody in. It's my day to go have lunch with James in the city. You and I go flying. I'll go have coffee with Kamal. It's my day to think and have play and get headspace. And I think it's important. I have a 3-day week, or 3 days off every week.
That's really important.
So,
and so so the next thing in the total focus is keep keenly attuned to everything going on around you. And a lot of that you get from your SEAL experience, because if you're not aware of it looks like there's a farmer 600 yards away, if you're not aware of everything going on, suddenly he could pull out a gun and shoot you. Yeah. Now, apply that into the business sense.
So that's, the principle situational awareness in the book, it's in business, it's as simple as reading the world. Knowing that as an entrepreneur, whatever domain you choose to go into in business, if it's, for me, it was the media space, and as a publisher of content, in 2012, I was 95% relying on advertising revenue. And over time, reading the industry publications, developing a network of people like Betsy Morgan, seeing what's happening in the media landscape, especially digital, because we were all digital from the start, and seeing how I was noticing how disruptive Facebook and Google was to digital advertising, because you can't, on a TV ad or magazine ad, spend $1 and make $4 like you can on Facebook. And I saw how the ad agencies in New York City, the big ad agencies, were really upset that Google was dominating the scene. And so they were agencies were standing up these subsidiary trading desk companies that kind of launder their own clients' money and doing these massive, and then they did these very targeted focus campaigns. Back to our earlier conversation on audience engagement is so key. I saw this lack of, they didn't care about audience engagement anymore. It was about doing these massive programmatic buys and just getting the eyeballs through the machine. And I was like, by paying attention and seeing what was happening, I said, you know what? We need to go focus on digital subscriptions and get off the advertising revenue, because I don't want to be so reliant on advertising revenue. We also had a scare with a big advertiser. We did a story about the first transgender Navy SEAL. Conservative military credit union pulled out all their ads for 2 weeks. And it was 7 figures of revenue for us. And I said, I don't want to be in that situation again either. So
did your stomach clench up? Like
it was brutal.
Okay.
Luckily, I had a contract I couldn't get out of, but it was brutal. And by reading the world and being situational aware, we're able to adapt and make moves, focus on our digital subscriptions, turn that on. People thought we were crazy to charge $5 a month to read our news. Now the New York Times is charging a subscription. And so as long as your content is good, which we had good content, we had built up a big enough audience, we did that, then we said, okay, what else can we do? And we came up with this e-commerce product. And it was born out of the fact that our audience was asking us advice on what flashlight should I choose, what's the best tent on the market, what hiking boots are the best.
Right. So I think listening to demand, like for instance, let's say you're in the financial space. Okay, everyone's talking about crypto, good or bad, bubble or not. There's something there that if you're in the financial media space, you need to satisfy the demand for that, because people are asking the question, what is it? And I think, again, that, keeping the umbrella focus, we're in the media business, but then listening to what are people actually asking for. What they're asking for that's called demand, and you have to supply. If you don't supply that demand, someone else is going to, and it's probably not going to be as good as your product because you believe in your vision.
Yeah, and seeing what's happening in traditional cable, like cable companies, people cutting the cord every month. Same with traditional newspapers. And I said, let's get ahead of that, start our own, SVOD channel, our subscription video
SVOD?
Subscription video on demand. Mm-hmm. So just like Netflix and HBO. Mm-hmm. Let's start our own and invest in that and grow that, because that's going to be extremely valuable to us, or potentially a cable company that needs to acquire somebody like us to be relevant in the digital space. And so it's really important to see what's going on in the world, and because you're going to have to adapt. And we took 95% ad revenue in 2012. This year, I think our advertising revenue will represent about 12 to 15% of our top line revenue, because we now have sustainable, recurring digital and e-commerce subscription revenue, and we're not, the advertising stuff is gravy. Now we're able to pick and choose a premium because they value that we do have an engaged audience.
I love the subscription business, and what's weird is that Wall Street, like retail investors or even institutional investors, do not like that business. They love the advertising business because it seems like free money without a lot of work, but they don't realize that the advertising business is extremely, every type of business is volatile, but advertisers, like you just said, they will pull money instantly. And subscribers, even though it makes your business much smaller because there's fewer subscribers willing to give you a credit card, that's a good, consistent business over time to grow.
Great
now,
business.
There's definitely some times like a TV network relies on advertising. You're not going to subscribe to ABC, but I think the subscription business, more businesses should consider it. They don't, because they see what are the big companies out there, but those are publicly traded companies, and they're responding to Wall Street with their advertising business.
I sat down with the CFO at A&E, and we had this conversation about them not having a direct relationship with their customer and the way that we do. I know, a lot about my customer, and
Sure.
by understanding that relationship better, I'm able to give him or her better content. And so that's the beauty of having that subscriber relationship, is you know where they live, how much they make, what kind of content they like to consume, what kind of gear they like to buy.
So I want to get to this other chapter, which I realized actually was, I said earlier, Embrace the Suck was my favorite chapter, but I think it's tied with my chapter on practice violence of action. which again probably comes from SEAL terminology, but I can relate to it a lot in the parts of my life which have been most successful. That when you do something, do it everywhere and do it well, which ties into your other value here, which is hold fast to a standard of absolute excellence. But let's just assume everyone's gonna. Sorry, I want to assume two things about that hold fast to a standard of absolute excellence. When you start something, you're not going to be excellent. So hold fast to a standard of learning absolute excellence, and then hold fast to the standard of absolute excellence. But assuming you have that, the way I personally practice violence of action is to make sure, let's say for a media business, that I'm everywhere. Everywhere you look, you see me. Someone's talking about the podcast or reading my blogs or reading something else I do or seeing me interviewed somewhere else. And I'm everywhere all the time. So not because I'm so great, it's because I work really hard and I try to offer value and a message that I think people will respond to. So talk about practice violence of action, because I think it's super important for any business.
Yeah, it's, and
any lifestyle.
Yeah, and the term comes from a special ops world where you come up with a plan and hit the target so fast and furious that the enemy doesn't even have time to react. Right? They're overwhelmed, and you've done it with it's that element of surprise, whatever. But you've hit it so hard and so fast that it just can't react. And so I like to apply that to business. And look, it doesn't mean you're going to have success every time. I launched a spouse blog for military spouses called The Fence Wife a couple years ago because this bank said, we want a relationship with the military spouse. They control the buying decisions. I'm like, you're absolutely right.
It's not a bad idea for a blog, though.
Yeah, no, we created it, but it just flopped. Like, we didn't execute poorly. But we stood it up, boom, launched it out, had an editor, and it didn't work for us. Mainly because the blog was working, the content was working, but we didn't. The bank ended up not coming in and giving us the sponsor money for it. So we killed it. But hey, we stood it up very quickly, found out it wasn't working, and then shelved it. So I like to do things. I like to create a plan, execute, adapt.
And I think people don't realize how fast they can do something. So it always reminds me of like self-publishing, which is it's been featured a lot on this podcast, but it's just a great analogy that if you want to write a book, don't sit around and wait for a publisher. You could write the book and self-publish it, and it'll do even better in most cases. So, and you could write it really fast, like much faster than people think.
Yeah, and so people say that all the time. Is like, I can't believe how fast you guys can move and operate, and I just have implemented that as one of our core values of the business. Like, look, we don't take what other people says. Their timelines. We're launching. I'll share this. We are launching a new box category called Continuum. It's life optimized. It's an anti-aging box because nobody's in the category. I'm super passionate about it. We came up with
No one's in that category?
No one's in the category.
I can't believe that because that's such a hot topic.
People are selling it, but no one's selling it as a subscription. And me, I had to go dig to find content around, what's the latest trends and product that's safe and science-based, like Elysium or Basis is a good one.
What's that?
It's the guy that studied anti-aging his whole career at MIT came up with a twice-a-day supplement, and it has to do with like cellular regeneration.
And it's digestible? Like, I find most supplements are not easily digestible.
Yeah, super easily digestible. Take 2 tablets a day. It's like a little liquid cap.
Okay.
But I take 2 a day. I've noticed my fingernails grow like crazy.
Really?
So something's going on. Oh yeah, something's going on. And
okay, so in this case, violence of action is you have an idea, anti-aging, and you're like, okay, we're launching it. Here's an ad for it. We'll put it on our site. Here's the first 5 products.
I'll tell you.
Get a bunch of addresses, and bam, we'll send out the box.
Tell you exactly that. So we wanted to find another category, and we had a couple categories that we thought would do well, but I wanted to pick something I was passionate about, so I knew I would put 100% of my energy into it. So I chose anti-aging. We came up with the name Continuum, ran the IP for the trademark, created a separate LLC. Well, within a week.
Within 1 week. Hurricane? Your company? Okay.
Within 1 week, we had the logo, the tagline, the trademark in process, the LLC stood up, and this is almost September. we will be live October 1st with the funnel built, the landing page, the website, some content.
Did you get any sense, like, did you go out to your subscribers, if we launch this, who would sign up?
No, I didn't go out to the subscribers directly, but we did. I actually had my 15-year-old son. He's great, like a great family analyst. He went out and I had him do a project. I had an intern and came up with enough data to go, okay, there's enough data here to support it. Plus,
what's the data that supported it?
Just like the market size, that nobody else was in the category of the subscription box space, and it's a crowded space now. It's a good business model. I hear analysts talking poorly about it all the time, but if you have something of value, like look at Dollar Shave sold to Unilever for $1 billion. If you have something of value in that space, you're going to do well. And so,
how do you make a profit with the box? Like, do you just mark up every item in the box?
I'll tell you exactly how we're going to do it. So, so this box will be live selling in October, pre-selling to ship in November. Because we had all the fulfillment set up and everything already. We sell the box for probably $400 a quarter. So it'll be a quarterly box, and we spend up to $200 in product in the box. And now,
your added value is
curation.
Curation,
and better than wholesale margin. So how do you get that? Say a $400 retail box, you have to negotiate with the suppliers. So we want to provide up to $450, $500 retail value. And the key on that is Amazon. Amazon is the baseline. You've got to make sure that no one can go on Amazon and get, because a brand will go, this is $40 product, and it's some dude on Amazon selling for $29. And
can you sell a box subscription on Amazon? I'm just curious.
You can on Amazon.
Would you consider that?
We're actually setting up Amazon store right now.
Let me just take what you just said and make it applicable to a 10-year-old. So I'm 10 years old and I want to set up my own subscription box business. And what I can do is every semester or quarter, whatever, I have a new set of teachers and textbooks, and I'm going to make a box of the teacher's editions of all your textbooks and send them to all my friends. And I just need 5 friends, and I'm going to charge $100. I'll go to their parents. I'm going to charge $100 a month, and here's all the teacher supplements in each box, or $100 a semester, and create this box.
Yeah.
And then go on Kindle, get the digital versions for like $50, and now I have a box.
Yeah. And so, and we've taken something, it's probably 60 days, we're going from zero to branded product ready to launch.
And you don't need you have a huge platform, so you'll sell. But again, I said in this example of the 10-year-old, you don't even need a huge platform. You can just start off small. It's not that hard to get the box together and mark it up a little bit because of the curation value that you bring, and sell it. Everybody thinks I need 200,000 people on my Twitter following or 300,000 Snapchat or Instagram followers. You don't need these things. You could just first go to your friends and say, hey, I've got this. Tell other people about it.
I'll send you, so my oldest son, he's, just came back from Stanford, sent it, like, Dad, I want to go to this speech and debate course at Stanford. Came back, he's like, I want to build my own computer because he needs a new computer. So he's just got this inquisitive mind, loves doing analyst work for me. I said, I want to know more about ICOs, this initial coin offering. And I read a book on blockchain, but I want to know more about that. And he wrote this very concise, probably 3-page in a Word doc paper on blockchain, ICOs. And I sent it to my entrepreneur group, and they're like, I would pay money for this type of...
I was just going to say to you, okay, can you...
And there's a 10-year-old kid, right?
I'll pay you money for that, and I'll just put it on my list.
Just send it out. And that's... How hard is that? You do the research, create something of value, and sell, an electronic document to how many people that really are in business, entrepreneurs that want to know what cryptocurrency is. How is it potentially going to affect their business? There's another idea. I told my son, you should sell this.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, why doesn't he just, the great thing about self-publishing is that you don't have to follow the 100-year rules of publishing. You don't need a 265-page or 60,000-word book. You could write a 5-page book and self-publish it on Amazon. I would do that if I were him because because there is demand. Everyone's asking the question, what's crypto? There is demand. Why doesn't he show up in the Amazon search for that? And then that's a good way for him to sell his report.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to him about it.
So there's other things that are really important. I think actually people should read the book just to hear all your stories about these things, but every one of these are important. Like honor and value your team is obviously, maybe that actually is the most important. I keep saying each one's the most important, but that leading from the front, which is another way of saying, you have skin in the game.
Yeah.
That's really important. Important enough that, one of my favorite authors, Nassim Taleb, is writing a book called Skin in the Game. That's how important that concept is. And I think we spoke about, the other things, but I think, look, you've got to read Total Focus because what's really interesting to me about this book is business is not about finding that great product and suddenly selling it and making millions of dollars. Or if it is, those are the fluke businesses. Business is about following these kind of standards of total focus, these different attributes of total focus, really understanding at a subtle level what the word focus and what the word excellence means, which you describe through many stories in this book. And it all comes together in terms of servicing the various stakeholders. Like you talk about how you're going to deal with advertisers, customers, subscribers, again, your employees, all these things at the same time. How are you going to expand in different ways that still kind of align with your mission? We all go through that. I'm going through that with my business right now. And I think these are the kind of the things that people don't learn even in business school.
Yeah.
Like in business school, they learn, here's how marketing works. Here's how management theory works. That stuff is gone now. Like this is business 101 right here. Tell me, does your business, how big is it right now? Like how many employees do you have?
We've got about 40 full-time employees, and we've got, I would say on the part-time, just from a content contributor standpoint, maybe 20, 30, 1099 content contributors, professionals that contribute to our content on a regular basis. And we're, you have a board of directors? From 7 to 8 figures this year. We had 200% growth.
That's great.
I don't, just my own personal philosophy. I don't like a formal board. I think it creates bureaucracy, but I have a board of advisors. Betsy is on there, Kamal, Matt Meeker, a lot of.
Interview me right now. I want to be on your board of advisors. How can you interview me? I can
don't
provide
even have
value.
to interview. I would put you on in a heartbeat.
All right, I'm on because I believe in this, and I believe also that
I would love it.
I mean, I've written about my feelings about war and all that stuff before. I know you agree, but I just think I will never say it's a shame the way the U.S. treats its returning vets because I don't think vets should rely on the government that sent them off to kill kids in Afghanistan. Stop relying on them already.
Yeah.
Not that the government's bad or good. I just think you can rely on yourself and get much better results.
I agree.
So I agree with what the premise of your mission, and I think it's exciting. I think there's an exciting area, and I love watching the business grow and you doing all these books and our friendship and so on. So count me in.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
So I encourage people to read the book. Brandon Webb, once again, thanks for coming on the podcast. I hope you come on
having me.
Many more times. We'll talk about military romance the next time when that series comes out. Thanks, Brandon.
For more from James, check out The James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network at jamesaltucher.com and get yourself on the free insiders list today.
Hey, thanks for listening. Listen, I have a big favor to ask you, and it will only take 30 seconds or less. And it would mean a huge amount to me. If you like this podcast, please let me know. Please let the team I work with know. Please let my guests know. And you can do this easily by subscribing to the podcast. It's probably the biggest favor you could do for me right now, and it's really simple. Just go to iTunes, search for The James Altucher Show, and click subscribe. Again, it will only take you 30 seconds or less, and if you subscribe now, it will really help me out a lot. Thanks again.
Powered by Snapdragon, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra elevates your photography to epic new heights. Snapdragon processors deliver a color experience like no other, with sharp, industry-leading 8K video capture. You can also snap images in 200 megapixels, capturing more detail than ever. And those late-night blurry pics are a thing of the past, thanks to next-level night mode. Experience powerfully moving premium photography, only with Snapdragon. Follow us on Instagram at Snapdragon Official.